It's close enough to 12, but I think we can go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I'm going to ask Mr. Coley to please call the roll.
Mr. Chair, I noticed that everyone but Commissioner Pennell and Commissioner Thompson are here, and you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Before we do anything else, I want to do is welcome those of you who are here with our Leadership Development Program. And why don't you all stand up and introduce yourselves and tell us where you work, so we get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. My name is Selena Douglas. I currently work in underground construction as a business analyst.
I'm Joshua Johnson. I'm an engineer in plant operations. I work at the Mark B. Whitaker Water Treatment Facility.
Let me ask, tell us also how long you've been with KUB.
I've been here 13 years.
10 years.
10 years, great.
I'm Barry Jones, and I'm with our Business Processes Group, and I've been here 18 years.
My name is Chris Lowry. I've been here 8 years, and I work in safety and technical services.
Right. Well, we're glad you all are here. Are you enjoying the leadership program?
Very much so.
Good. Great. That's fantastic. Well, thanks for being here. The first order of business is to approve the minutes. The minutes were emailed to everyone. Is there a motion regarding the minutes? So second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Our first official action today is Resolution 1310, replacing the existing rate schedules of the electric, gas, water, and wastewater divisions. This is our second and final reading of this resolution.
Commissioners, I'll remind you that in April we had a workshop on this subject in addition to the board meeting, and then in May you had a presentation along with this when it was considered by you for first reading. In addition to that, we've had several meetings over the last 3 or 4 years on the subject of Century 2 capital investment and funding that plan. So Mark is here to provide a brief summary of the financials behind it and answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, as you know, each of our utility systems has a long-term funding plan that has been endorsed by the board through resolution. And those funding plans include a combination of debt issues and rate increases for all 4 systems. And we think it represents a balanced program that helps spread the cost of those programs over both current and future customers. And at the May board meeting, the board, in addition to adopting the fiscal year 2015 budget, adopted $78 million in bonds for the electric, water, and wastewater systems for fiscal year 2015. And also, on first reading, approved the rate increases for each system for each of the next 3 years. And I wanted to start out and just go through a funding timeline that goes back to 2007, because we've spent many years, as Ms. Roach mentioned, talking about Century 2. And it actually goes back to 2007 when we launched the water system Century 2 program with a phased-in increase in main replacement that was to take place over several years. And in 2008, we recommended to the board the electric system Century 2 program. But in 2008 also, the recession hit very significantly to our customer service territory, and in response to that, we implemented a recession response plan, which included the deferral of the increased rate of main replacement for the electric and water systems, and also we implemented several cost-saving initiatives, including a significant reduction in full-time staffing, which will save our customers about $200 million over the next 20 years. So with that and with those cost savings, we knew when we came back with Century 2, the rate increases that we would propose would be less than they otherwise would have been with those significant cost savings. So, in 2011, with the economy slightly improving, the board agreed that it was time to resume the electric and water Century 2 programs. And we spent a number of board meetings, a number of months in financial workshops, one-on-one sessions, regularly scheduled public meetings, talking about long-term funding plans for electric and water, and developing those plans, which culminated in August of 2011, the board adopting a resolution that approved the electric and water system 10-year funding plans. And with that same resolution, they adopted the first 3 years of rate increases for each of those plans, which have now all gone into effect. And given that all our funding plans are balanced, we do use a lot of debt, and the board is familiar with that, in particular for the wastewater system over the years. But in the last 3 years, we have sold $180 million in bonds across all systems, which in 2013, the board expressed a desire to, just like we did for electric and water, to develop long-term 10-year funding plans for natural gas and wastewater. So we went through the same process that we did with electric and water in 2011 with a financial workshop in November, one-on-one meetings with board members, which culminated in December of 2013, the board adopting a resolution that endorsed 10-year funding plans for both gas and wastewater. And then in April of this past year, we had a 3-hour plus financial workshop, which we discussed in detail all 4 10-year funding plans and the specific funding recommendations for the debt and the rate increases that were considered at the May meeting, which brings us up to date. And I'll just mention that these were often long working sessions with the board, and these were meetings, obviously, that were all publicly noticed and that the media covered, so we had full attention for those meetings. Looking at the proposed rate increases themselves, this chart shows it from the impact on the residential monthly bills for our electric customers, residential customers. It's a $1 increase in August of 2015, followed by a $1 increase in August of 2016, and a $1 increase in August of 2016, 14, 15, and 16. For water, the first increase will be a $2 increase on the monthly bill, August of 2014, followed by $1 increases in August of 2015 and August of 2016. For natural gas, a $1 increase on the monthly bill beginning in November of 2014, then the next 2 successive Novembers, 2015 and 2016. And for wastewater, a $3 increase in the monthly bill beginning in November of 2014, then one in 2015 and 2016. I will point out that all of these increases that we've discussed several times will be applied to the customer charge, and the rationale for that is, one, that it better reflects our cost structure at KUB. Most utilities like KUB have most of their costs are relatively fixed in nature, but our cost recovery over the time has been more so through commodity or variable charges. This matches it better up with our cost structure. It's also consistent with the trend that utilities across the nation have been doing for the better part of the decade. And we'll see in just a moment how our customer charges compare, and you'll find that they're right in line with other utilities. Also, on this slide, I mentioned that the amount of debt that we're going to be doing over the next 3 years, the board has already authorized the $78 million in bonds for next fiscal year, but we anticipate $78 million for the following fiscal year and $80 million in FY17. So about $240 million over the 3-year period in total in debt. So again, a balanced funding. And commissioners, you saw these charts last month. It's just a quick snapshot of how our residential rates compare with our fellow or peer utilities for each of the services. And you can see on electric and how we compare. Also, in the gray portion of the bar, we've highlighted what the current monthly customer charge is. And you can see we're in step with generally what other utilities are doing. And this is electric. Obviously, we're at $100 right now. We'll increase to $103 by 2017. The same type of chart for gas. You can see the breakdown. Our current average monthly bill is $57. You can see the customer charge at $6 and how we compare to other utilities. Again, that will increase $3 to $60 by 2017. The same with water. How we compare to local utility districts and some regional cities and their water utilities. Again, you see in gray the customer charges and then the total bills and how we compare very favorably on our water rates. Currently, $19 will increase to $23 by 2017. And then wastewater, our comparison group is other regional cities under federal consent decrees. We feel that's the best comparison group for wastewater rates. And you can see how where we are right now, we'll be moving to $57 on a monthly basis by 2017. In closing, Resolution 13 on second reading, it does approve rate increases for each of the next 3 fiscal years in all 4 services. As we talked about, it will be applied to the customer charge for residential. For non-residential, it will be applied to both customer charge and usage charges. And for the electric and water increases, it will be reflected on August bills beginning this August. And for gas and wastewater, November of each year beginning November of 2014. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Is there a motion regarding Resolution 1310?
So moved.
Second.
Is there, I show some folks here to speak. Are you here to speak about this issue? Mr. Presley? Are you here to
speak about a lot of things.
Okay. Mr. Presley, I remind you that we have a 5-minute limit, and I would ask you to.
First of all, KUB is a scam. I've been taking this sign with me to the city council, to the commissioners, to everyone. Second of all, I wrote the Department of Energy, and they passed the buck down from Washington to TVA. They say if I got a problem with KUB, go to TVA. TVA, I call them and put their phones almost every day for 2 weeks. I call the White House, 212-456-1111, to complain about you guys. All of you all need to be replaced. Ms. Roach, she need to be replaced with that guy named Paul Chapman. That guy, he helped me more than anybody in KUB. That guy was nice. He calmed me down enough to let me try to explain why my bill keep going up month to month. Now this time, my bill went up $30 in electric from last month. I know the first excuse y'all have when people say on the phone is, oh, it's been a hot summer. It's been a hot summer. It's been a cold winter. You can use that excuse all the way until this place closed. But you all need to at least care about us as citizens. I don't want to complain to you all if you're doing a good job. But if you're doing a bad job, somebody has to speak up. This envelope, as soon as I walk out this door, it's already addressed to CBS News, 60 Minutes. And they already done talked to them. I talked to WATE. And that thing, that report they had about Morristown, I called WATE, asked them why they had to go to Morristown, why they can't investigate you guys right here. They say KUB sent them so much paperwork, it's going to take them 3 months just to go through paperwork. That gives you all time enough to try to get your act together. But when that guy up there talking about something, you finna give us some rate increase, that's the biggest joke in town. We paying for that ash spill from a long time ago. And we're going to continue to pay for it. That's how y'all use these little rate increases. Keep on doing it. Eventually, you'll get to the light. But I told that guy, why you got to go to Morristown? Let's go right here. He said, eventually, we're going to get to you all. And then, luckily, I got this out of the newspaper about Y12. They showing this real uranium that's built right here in our backyard. Now, if that ash spill caused that much damage, imagine when them two 84-year-old nuns snuck in the building and caused that problem they had, what one of the crazy people really might do. And when they do it, we all from here, I already talked to CBS, and they say if that place over there in Oak Ridge, any little accident happen, it can go from here all the way to the east coast of South Carolina. That's how much damage it's going to cause. So just get serious and just tell us you're raising our bill so we can pay y'all pay the bills from the ash bill. And it's going to continue. It's just a matter of time when that next disaster going to hit, and it's going to get us. It's just a matter of time. And then with the light bill, you all keep telling us, oh, well, the rate increase keep coming about because you have to buy electricity from TVA. Keep on buying electricity and keep on raising our bills. All you're doing is costing us, and we got to put the bill. And eventually, it's going to catch up with you guys. I've been to the county commissioners, I've been to Senator Corker, I've been to Alexander, I've been to Duncan. They write me all these nice little pretty letters back saying KUB is doing the right thing. I talked to West Knox Utility, I talked to Little North City Utility. They said you all got this thing so tight that they couldn't even get no new customers if they wanted to. So you all got it planned just like you want to, and all you're doing is just taking advantage of us. I went to the city council. They don't want to touch you guys. They act like you all are gods up there. I talked to the mayor's office, I talked to all of them, and they refused to even tell them that I even came. I went to the MPC board last week, and I had a big old sign that said KUB is a scam. I held it up the whole meeting, and Monday at the city, county commissioners, I'm gonna do it there too. Tuesday at the city council, I'm gonna do it there too, until somebody hear our cry. All we trying to do is just be honest with us. You know we paying for the oil at Asheville. You know we gonna pay for any other disaster that pop up. You're just passing the buck. I moved here from Florida, and I fought with the Florida Power and Light. Eventually, they gave us a little deduction, but the first hurricane came, they raised it back. And you all know how it works. We don't know how it works. You got all these people up here telling us, oh yeah, this is all we're doing, we're just trying to be fair. You're not never trying to be fair. And then you got these people working in our area in West Knoxville to where they leaving, you got these contractors supposedly making some new sewage systems set up, but they leaving the caps uncovered. They leaving rocks all in the road. I would call these people and complain, even Duncan and Corker and all that. I told them to ride out of the area and sit themselves. But you don't pay them to do this work.
Your 5 minutes is up. We appreciate your coming in.
All right, CBS in 60 minutes, they will be here.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak on Resolution 1310? Larry? It's a tough act to follow.
I'll do my best. Good afternoon. My name is Larry Silverstein, 7808 Sheffield Drive, Knoxville. I'm here today as a representative of Community Forum, an organization which has representatives from many neighborhoods in Knoxville. Unfortunately, our longtime chairperson, Mrs. Sue Maurer, was unable to attend today. The KUB board in recent days has received 2 letters of correspondence from the Community Forum detailing our specific concerns about the proposed rate increase. To be clear, we are not opposed to infrastructure improvements. We object to how they're being paid for and financed. I'm not going to repeat everything that has already been submitted. Rather, I will offer you a brief summary of our concerns. Community Forum believes that, number 1, long-term capital improvements to infrastructure should be financed entirely out of existing resources and, if necessary, by long-term bonds. Funding by rate increases should only be done as a last resort. KUB's balance sheet as of March 31st, 2014 shows $375 million in current assets, including $189 million in cash and cash equivalents, plus operating contingency reserves of another $78 million. This compares to current liabilities of only $167 million. Accounts receivable are close to accounts payable, which means the cash balance is quite stable and very large. KUB's debt-to-assets ratio is such that there is no problem at issuing additional long-term debt or paying the interest expense. Interest rates are still historically low. 3, if rates must be increased, they should be not added to the basic service charge component of ratepayer bills. Any increases should be based on actual consumption only. The proposed increases, which will be phased in over 3 years, are not modest increases. This is especially true when one considers that these rates have already been increased substantially in recent years. While these increases might seem modest to wealthy KUB management and board members, they create a severe financial burden for many ratepayers who live on meager income and no savings. Many thousands of people are already struggling to pay their KUBs and bills and trying to conserve their usage. Increases to the basic service charge is just not right. This is a matter of fairness. The proposed increases, particularly to already very high wastewater bills, are just not fair, and it appears are not even necessary when other alternatives for financing are available. The whole concept of, quote, basic service charges should be re-examined because they are not fair to those who use the least amount of service. In conclusion, we hope that this board will reconsider its position on these proposed increases, which are permanent increases, not just for this year, but for each of the next 3 years. We understand that it is easy to raise a lot of money just by raising rates a few dollars a month and figure that nobody will care or suffer because of it. However, you should realize that for a lot of people, this is not just a few dollars, especially at a time when property taxes, gasoline, food, rent, and other necessities of life are also increasing, not to mention the other components of their KUB bills, which will continue to go up in the future. We thank you very much for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. and Ms. Brassfield, or you all want to speak?
No, we are with Community Forum and Larry Silverstein.
Okay, same position as him?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have the floor, I'd like to address some of the comments that were made.
That's fine.
And just so that the members here from Community Forum do know, one of the other comments you made in the letter was that you knew that we weren't a board made up primarily of accountants. I am an accountant. I've had an active CPA license for the past 32 years. I served for 13 of those years in public finance, and because of that, I've been responsible for a lot of capital plans and for a lot of debt financing and trying to figure out how to finance it. I also was attained the designation as a certified public financial official in 2001. So just want you to know where I'm coming from on this. And I appreciate your comments, but I think there's some things that you can't obtain just by looking at a consolidated financial statement. And it's tough to do. There's a lot of information out there, and as Mark Walker presented, we've spent a lot of time over this past year going through all that financial information. So I'd like to address just a couple of points that you raised. As far as the cash balances and the fact that we have large cash balances, you looked at the cash balances from a consolidated position. And the way that a utility is organized under state law, we have to segregate that cash fund by fund. We can't use the cash from one fund to spend on another fund. That's the way that legally we're structured and the way that we have to operate. And so you also can't look at the cash at any one point in time and determine what you're going to be able to do with that over the next year or the next 3 years. The staff here does look at that as we're trying to determine how we're going to operate and how we're going to finance these capital projects. And so what you would see in our total plan is that KUB is using a mixture of long-term debt and cash to fund the capital project needs and the infrastructure needs over the period of time that these rate increases are going to support. We've used as much debt as we feel like we can use, not as we feel like we can use, as we've demonstrated we can use. When you look at the analysis, we have to meet a certain amount of debt coverage, and so we have to have the revenue structure that will support that and meet that debt coverage. If we don't do that, then we risk having to sit across the table from the bond analysts and explain why we have failed that and why we would need to keep the bond rating that we've got, or else we're going to lose our bond rating and be forced to pay higher rates the next time we go to the bond market. And that's not something that's fiscally sound for us to do, and that's not something that's advantageous to the ratepayers in the future. So we are using as much long-term debt as we can to finance these projects. And then the third thing that you said was that we should put the increase on the usage charges and not on the basic service charge, because that's fairer and that's less of a financial burden to our ratepayers. And I would contend that that's absolutely not true because of this. I wish we had a crystal ball and we could tell you whether or not next winter and the winter after and the winter after are going to be average, mild, or terrible, but we can't. And so what we've done is we've looked at putting those rate increases on the basic service charge because they are predictable. You know what they're going to be. They're going to be out there, and they're going to give us only the amount of money that we need to operate and to meet our debt service coverage in a fiscally responsible manner. If we put it on the usage charge and we have one of those winters that happens to be horrendous, then KUB is going to by virtue of those terrible temperatures and high energy usage, we're gonna collect more than we need. And our ratepayers are going to be far more burdened than they should be. It's my experience that the ratepayers have more problems in those period of times when energy usage is high. It's the winter months when the bills are high, when people have to go seek assistance to help pay their utility bills. So from my perspective, that's the reason that I'm supporting this resolution. And I do believe that this is what's called for and that it's a fiscally responsible thing to do for our ratepayers.
Thank you.
I'd like to add, we're volunteers on this board. And I guess this is my 7th year, and we've raised the rate several times. And it's not a pleasant thing to do. That doesn't make it any less necessary to do. We went for a lot of years up here without raising any rates, and thought that was the way to operate, and it's caught us now. So we're trying a little bit of catch up. But I take offense at the thought that we're not, that we didn't do that, we making these decisions on just our shirt sleeves. We have spent a lot of time and effort looking at each one of these rates, trying to figure out how to make it as fair and as painless as we can. And at the last moment, to orchestrate letters and this is just, I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, I would echo the one thing, and that is, we've been working on this for a long time. Just time-wise, we've worked on it for a long time. That doesn't count the amount of hard decision-making that has gone into it. So this isn't something that's just popped up and we're making a decision in a hurry. We've been very deliberate about this for a long time. Some of this goes back all the way back to 2007 and 8 when we decided that we needed to postpone that for the benefit, the Century 2 for the benefit of our ratepayers. But this is a necessary thing. It is absolutely critical that we not do just what's in the best interest of our ratepayers today, but we've got a system that we've got to be responsible for the next 100 years. And so the decisions that we're making today are not just for today, they're for the long term. And so I too think that this is the right thing to do. If there is no other comments, I'm going to ask Mr. Coley to call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Cannell?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbert?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? And, Resolution 1310 is passed with Commissioners Pennell and Thompson absent.
Thank you. And let me say, we do appreciate public's input. We are always here every month, except next month, right? And the public's always welcome to be here and give us their input. This is when we talk about these things, and this is why we do this in public, so that the public can participate. All right, next on the agenda is the President's report.
Commissioners, I'll remind you, in that session we had in April, we talked a little bit about safety and how important it is to this organization. You know, it's one of our metrics that the board measures us on, and over the last 10 years, we've put a lot of emphasis on employee safety. You all know it, you're familiar with it. But the question arose during that presentation, what about contractor safety? Because we have a lot of contractors doing our work. So I want you to know that we've asked Brooke Sinclair, who is our manager of safety and technical services, to update you on our employee safety program, but then to go on in and tell you what we do to manage contractor safety.
I'll start with just a brief overview of where we're going to go with this presentation. I want to give you a feel for the evolution that we've had at KUB and how that's impacted our safety program, but also how that's impacted how we work and our relationships with our contractors. We'll talk a little bit about metrics. We have a 4-step process that we go through to talk about how we manage that contractor safety program. And then lastly, we'll go over some next steps, because this is something that's ever evolving. We're continuously improving, and we're not finished yet. So I have a timeline here, and I hope what you see as a part of this is there's really no one event that has just completely shaped us in the way that we are today. There have been a series of events that have occurred. We've seen a lot of changes with respect to growth. We've had strong growth, and we've dropped off in some growth declines, and that has made a big difference in how our contractor base has come in and has sustained here at KUB, and that's changed our relationship with them. In addition to that, we had our first corporate metric back in 2000, and from there we started focusing on injury prevention within KUB primarily, because we started off with a fairly hands-off approach on contractor safety. Our contracts were written that they were responsible for their job sites, their workers, very different than what we see today, but that is how we started in this evolution. So when we were looking at injuries and incidents and trying to prevent those, our first thought was employees and their behaviors typically cause unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. So we really had to focus on changing our behaviors. So we implemented in 2002 our first behavior-based safety program. It's called STOP. It's a DuPont product off the shelf that we purchased and implemented inside KUB, all about changing behaviors and observations. And then we moved to a program called START, and that stands for Safety Talks and Accident Reduction Training. And the point of that is to take all those good things that we liked about DuPont and make those utility specific to KUB, so that we could see some more improvements. And I'll show you in our metrics how we've had some culture shifts as a result of that. And then we had PACE 10 work come along, as well as Century 2 work, and then our contractor base has just continued to increase, and we've leveled off there, and that has impacted how we work with them. So I talked about START as a program. Safety is very critical to KUB, because if you can't work safely, then you really can't get work done, typically. So we have what we call a core value, and this is what we communicate to our employees every day about how we want them to act and believe and demonstrate in the field. That's the point of a core value. And pretty simply put, it's prevention of injury and protection of life is KUB's highest ethical responsibility. The second piece of that is their personal safety, as well as our contractors and our public is valued above all else. And then lastly, everything starts with safety. And the point of that is we believe that if we start with safety and we continue that on, we'll complete the job not only on time and with quality, but also with everybody going home at the end of the day. So because of that, we do have this corporate metric. I talked a little bit about the culture shift that we've seen. We implemented START in about the 2007 time period, in different phases of that throughout the years. You can see an obvious culture shift in our injury cases. Ms. Roach mentioned our corporate metric. It's on DART cases. DART stands for any injury that results in 1 day away or more, or restricted duty, which means I'm a construction person, I'm supposed to be able to lift 50 pounds, I can't, I can only lift 10, I'm therefore restricted for days, or a transfer case. We actually track all of our injuries. These are any injury that would have to be placed on your OSHA recordable log. So we have days away, which is the bottom number, restricted cases, the reddish color, and the green will be recordable only. Something like maybe a bee sting that requires a shot, but yet is not bad enough that you take a day away from work or more. And I think you can clearly see the culture shift here from here to here, and we believe that is a direct result of our START program. And then we shift down here, and we believe that this is a result of more field presence, more auditing inside our KUB sites as well as our projects. And then lastly, we spent a lot more time with effective training, hands-on, effective, performance-based training to make a difference. We also track motor vehicle accidents because KUB drives about 3 million-ish plus miles a year. So we have a lot of opportunities to be on the road. This chart doesn't show the culture shift as easily if you're looking at total motor vehicle accidents. But if you look at the bottom number, which has the preventable accidents, those are accidents that we could have done something different to prevent that from occurring. And you see a great shift from 2007 down to where we are in 2014 with 9 preventable motor vehicle accidents. So again, we knew that our program was working, and all along we were implementing this START program. We're working shoulder to shoulder with contractors every day. We were doing follow working in our buildings and possibly creating some unsafe conditions. And so we really started looking towards how can we manage contractor safety way back in the early 2000s to get us to the program that we are today. And it's really a four-step process. And the goal across the board is compliance with OSHA and TOSHA standards. OSHA is the federal agency, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They have the standards that we have to comply with for construction and general industry. TOSHA, or Tennessee OSHA, is the agency that has primacy for the state of Tennessee. So they regulate us and they regulate all the contractors that do work here locally. We have this process. I'm going to kind of talk through each of those individually because they're pretty important. It's important to know that from a pre-qualification standpoint, though, we are focused on primary construction capital contractors. So the guys that you see installing pipe and work in our plants, that's where our pre-qualification process has really, it began way back with PACE 10 in 2003 when we began that effort, and it continues today, and we're continuing to evolve, and I'll talk about the Browse program that we're implementing right now as well. So when a contractor comes into KUB and wants to work for us, the first thing we do is request they fill out this package. Health and safety is the #1 hurdle that they must get through. We look at their injury rates, so we're looking at those DART rates we talked about. We're also looking at their experience modifier rate, what types of injuries have they had, fatalities, and we compare those to their industry-specific standards. So a tree trimmer is different than a construction company, and we compare those that way over a 3-year average. In the past, we have always asked for, do you have written safety programs? Do you have job hazard analysis? Do you have procedures? We've never verified those. Same thing for the Tennessee Drug-Free Workplace. We have always required they sign an affidavit if they have it. This Browse company is a third party who will actually come in and do verification for us. All electronics, so the contractor submits through them. They have a standard that they have to require the contractor to meet, which is set by KUB. They do verification with health and safety professionals just like us out at their location. And once they are passed, they will get to move to the next phase. A natural gas contractor has additional requirements that they have to comply with as well. And the first is they have to have a compliant drug and alcohol program where they do testing at certain rates in pre-employment. And that is administered because of PHMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. That's the federal branch of that. And they also have to sign on to KUB's Operator Qualification Program. That requires them to have a service with a third-party company where all our testing and training and performance evaluation information is, because when we have a contractor performing gas work, we want to ensure that they are qualified to perform every covered task that they are performing on that job. So if they make it through this phase, the next thing we look at are their references. And we're looking, this is really on the procurement side, where they're looking at complexity of the job, recent jobs that they have performed that are applicable to what we're talking about. Each individual utility is looked at separately with different standards. And then they'll do a financial review for bonding, licensures, and insurance, because the point is to make sure the contractor is qualified to bid at the level they want to bid. Every utility is different. We have unlimited all the way down to short extension, small pipe diameter, small wire jobs, so that they can be right sized to the work that they're capable of performing appropriately. Now, all contractors, starting at this phase, we do perform very active oversight. We do that through a variety of methods. All of these are employed at some point on all of our job sites, from the plants to our properties work, outside in the field on construction sites, and everywhere in between. We'll have pre-construction meetings, we have progress meetings, and that is really important to set the expectation. Depending on where that contractor works, their host employer, which is KUB, has a different level of standard of what they're willing to accept, and we want them to understand what our bar is immediately. Because one of the things that we've seen over the years has been a change in the regulatory landscape. In the past, it was okay to be that hands-off group, whereas OSHA has gone through in their multi-employer policy and have had some appeals that they've won that says the host employer, which would be KUB, has some responsibility. We have some due diligence under reasonable care, because we have the ability to abate hazards and to prevent those. So we take that very seriously when we look through this process. All bid documents are individualized for the project, so they may be similar from job to job, but they're specific to the work that's going to occur in groups within KUB are the inspections. All of the front-end work can be great, but really what we're verifying is the work that's performed in the field is performed not only to the quality standards that we have within our standards and specs and those bid documents, but also to OSHA standards. So our resident project representative will make, he'll be there, he or she will be there day to day, looking at the specs and doing comparisons. In addition to, and that's usually with our engineering groups. Within safety and technical services, we have folks that are looking at operator qualification for specific covered tasks for natural gas to ensure that they are complying with those requirements. And then we have safety and health professionals that are performing very detailed inspections for safety and health and provide that information back, not only to the field, but also to their management. We do tailgate safety meetings and job safety briefings, and those are great opportunities to reinforce maybe some repeat issues that we've seen, minor issues that we've seen, because we really don't want to get to the stop work point, although we will issue that, and stop work can be for a person, it can be for a task, it could be for 5 minutes, or it could be for 3 to 4 weeks. Whatever it takes to address that unsafe condition or that unsafe act, that's how we use a stop work notice, and that's a formal process that we go through. Other notices could be notifying their senior management, because in many cases we see that we may not be making progress at the field level, so we may have to ratchet up to the next level. So that leads us to accountability. We will address issues with the project manager, which would be the contractor's project manager, as quickly and as succinctly as possible, because we want issues to stop there and not have to move forward. But on occasion, we will have to provide notice up to their contract signing authority. And that's the person that just has the responsibility to sign the contract that says they will perform work for X dollars. So that's how we sort of move it up the chain. And we try to do that early on so that they are aware of what we are seeing in the field. We will typically increase inspection, certainly for new contractors or contractors we've had repeat issues with. We make unscheduled visits at 4 in the morning and Saturday afternoons and everywhere in between to ensure that would be my safety staff, in addition to that RPR that's there for the bulk of the time that the work is going on, so we can have that look of what's going on when we may not be there at that moment. We do lots of face-to-face meetings with that contract signatory, and we're talking to them about what's your measures of improvement and what's the timeline for that. If it's a piece of equipment, if it's a tool, if it's a person that we need to address, how are we going to do that and how quickly can that get done? And what work can we allow you to do and still ensure that the work is safe for the areas we've had issues with? And then we track improvements and we document those. So our goal is to work really hard on the first 3 steps and really work the contractor through that. Because once we have shown them that we're not going to waver from our requirements, we seem to have made a lot of progress over the past several years. I wanted to give you just a quick example of a project site. And I've used these pictures because even to folks that may not have a safety degree, you can look at this and see something looks obviously wrong. This is a manhole box, trench box. It's supposed to provide protection. This is a trench box. And you really don't get the perspective. That's probably 16 feet deep there. So we had a long-term KUB contractor who worked for us for many, many years. Back in December of 2012, we were having repeat issues with. We were seeing these types of trenches. We continue to have to stop work and clear people out. And it's very painful for the contractor, which is part of the strategy to make it painful enough to see the culture change. But in one particular case, we had just arrived on site. Trench box was in the excavation, and they had this scaffolding over to the trench. But the problem with the trench box is if you don't have the soil up to it, it has no support. That's part of the system. That's the protective system. The bank gave away and pushed the box over here. Now, fortunately, no one was on the walking plank, and no one was in the trench box, but they obviously had been. So these are the situations where we stop work and we don't allow work for days until we get a timeline on how they're going to make improvements. I think the most important thing here is this, we did lots of site inspections after this just to ensure that they stayed on task. And we had a lot of not so fun conversations the first couple of months when we were making 8 to 10 inspections in that time period. But about that 3rd month, contractors to perform work. We have lots of work that's going on in the field. They understand our expectations. That's a relationship that is a valued relationship to continue this work. And that's really our goal. We want to get through steps 1, 2, and 3 and stop there so that it is not a punitive situation. Because as a utility, we do have limitations. The contractor has certain rights in our contracts, and we have certain rights, but we both have limitations on things that we can and cannot do. And the contractor does have a right to work. They have a right to repair things that maybe weren't installed correctly the first time. They have a right to correct issues. So we have to allow that to occur, and one of our first limitations that we have is we must give them a notice of deficiency. If we see issues in the field, we give a notice of deficiency. In many cases, we'll do an up to 90-day stand down, and the point of that is to allow us to collect some information. Stop work, collect information. We'll have quick meetings. We don't want them to think that we're obviously stopping work and going to drag this out. We want it completed quickly because we have customers, the yards that they are working in, so we take that very seriously and want to ensure that the work gets done quickly but safely. That 90-day stand down can last 90 days, and we can do that without any notice. So that's our first opportunity. The second thing that we can do is we can, it's from an informal standpoint, suspend the contractor from bidding. Where we see most of our issues is not that the contractors don't want to be safe. In many cases, they've bid on way too many jobs. They've done things that they cannot just sustain that level of work. So equipment is in different places, people are in different places, and they just don't have the oversight that they need. So we will request that they do not bid further, just until they can address the work that they have and allow us to get comfortable with their practices in the field. If those don't work, next we can move to a no-bid agreement. And this is an actual signed agreement, much more formal. We typically do this for 6 to 12 months. Again, an opportunity for them to get the work that they have done, that they have in progress now, completed, and put all their resources to it so that they can do it safely. We do these first 3 because the fourth option here is pretty expensive, not just for the contractor, but for KUB as well. When the contractor is debarred, and we have debarred a few contractors, the next time they go to bid on a job outside of KUB territory, their bonding agent is going to ask them, have you ever been debarred? And their answer is going to be yes, and that means their bonding rate is going to be much higher. For KUB, we will have to move to litigation in order to pull that bond. And rarely does the contractor want to come behind someone else to do warranty work. And there's just a lot of opportunities for issues after the job. So our typical response is we have had 24/7 safety response on site with them at all times. We have had resident project representatives there, and that's the norm. They're there most of the time. And we essentially work with them to very, very closely to move forward, to not get to this point. But on the occasion that we do, we have had to implement that, and that is typically where safety and technical services, along with our engineering groups and procurement is working hand in hand. So I mentioned that we weren't finished yet. I mentioned that the Browse program, we were implementing it now. We're doing that in phases. We're talking first working on our natural gas contractors because they have so many additional requirements. Working with them, about to wrap those folks up, and then we will move next to the water wastewater contractors, and then from there tree trim. And we'll look what's the next level that we should go to, if at all. We've been focused on our higher risk areas, larger projects, because obviously this is a cost as well, and we want to try to balance that inside KUB too. We will continue to conduct those quality and safety inspections, and they will be random and they will be unscheduled so that we can get a good picture of what's going on in the field. We're increasing safety training requirements for those RPRs, and that's just so that they have the confidence in the field to answer questions and identify issues where there may be some nuances to the regulation, not as much, not so obvious of an imminent danger situation. And then lastly, we're just going to continue to meet or exceed not only the OSHA standards, but also KUB internal standards as well.
Brooke, which divisions have the most contractors?
Numbers-wise, certainly going to be any of the wastewater construction work, just merely because